Again I advance across the tragic beaches of this deserted island, footsteps upon sand so profound, so deep, that one perceives no step. Mute beaches where footsteps are lost. Mute deserted steps upon sand over which I advance again, to find you. This morning I saw a porpoise, not 30 yards from here. At first I caught only a passing sideways glimpse of the dorsal fin, and I panicked that it was a shark. But no, that's surely wrong, I told myself. There are no sharks here, only memories, deities, and ghosts. I'm leaving today, driving right off this island. You look doubtful, but it's true. I have found the old reef road. The wooden marker posts of pioneer days are long gone, but I don't need them to know. I've found the spot. The water barely covers my ankle. The reef road shouldn't be here, but at North Beach, on the other side of Corpus Christi Bay. And yet, here it is, my salvation. The oyster shells make a solid roadbed, so should have trouble. At low tide, I'll drive across the Limit and back to dry land, carrying my incredible revelation, my reality-altering conclusion of time into the waking of commonplace art, conventional theology. A short trip across the public beach, I'll disappear into the anonymous traffic, shoreline drive, past the beachfront mansions. Look, you can see them from here. Are they not beautiful? These vast and magnificent homes. Here is one, a tragic mansion of an early time. Notice how the grounds are in the Uruguayan style, and yet without shrubbery, blossoms, or vegetation of any kind. Here we find a past Carrara marble, a past carved in stone intersecting line, reserved ripe with inscrutability. Upon initial view, it appears impossible to get lost here, a walkway between unassailable statue embellishment. And yet I am myself forever, myself in prophetic uses, alone I pat my exile, alone with you. She is fine, however, she will not accompany my trip. This time he travels solo. So what occurred with picture flying, rocking through the sky, Christopher Superman, my right fist thrust for me. I am flying a parking lot, heading forward next to a woman who is pregnant with my son. There is a complication. This woman is not my I have not spoken with her at all during her pregnancy, and she's already in her second trimester. It's definitely time to pay her some attention. Next, we are in a sort of cave, except with ceiling missing, open to the sky. I think of a making that I've already scripted. It's called Exterior. As I look around the walls of the cave, it occurs to me that I become trapped. Always there are walls, mute, deserted, baroque embellishment, mahogany, Venetian plaster, gold frame, Carrara, dark glass, pure illustrations, Romanesque column, sculptured threshold, line, door, column, oblique hallway to dessert eating rooms, panel embellishments, your time. Mute rooms where footsteps are lost, salted burb so profound, so deep, perceived step. The walls enclose it, but I don't panic. I tell myself this place will be safe all the time. Just during this short time I'm here, I won't be trapped. If I can just set aside my anxiety for a enjoy it. The cave is a pretty place, with pools, still water, patches of grass and moss. I talk to the woman who will bear my child. She is La, or maybe Cinnamon, or maybe you. I tell her I'm not sure if I should tell my two sons about the baby. I would have to admit to extramarital sex. I don't mention that my wife might not appreciate this admission. On the other hand, I think my boys should know about their half-brother. After all, this new divine entity will grow up to create next year and bad movie that will bring about the end of the world and beginning of the new religion. La incredibly supportive. She tells me I should do whatever I think is best. I shouldn't worry over the detail. Her family's rich. Her father was one of the medical professionals who treated the fatal JFK in Dallas, and she assures me that as far as they are concerned, no strings attached to any financial or other support. I tell her it's so impressive that our son will grow up to do great things. He'll go to USA. Love corrects me. She tells me it's a different one I've never heard of. It is a hyphenated name with Yale first part. Yale Henning or something like that. So that's it. He'll be part of an and world I know nothing about. Attention, Mark Leach. David Lynch is holding on the red phone. He wants to lend you his embalmed calf fetus for the baby scene. In any case, you're just joining us here. In case you're just joining us here on Blast, it's the end of the world in Next Year and Bad. B-movie sci-fi filmmakers have a long heritage of mining various veins of the apocalyptic genre, but few have tunnels deep and come up as lacking as Mark Leach. Next Year and Bad is arguably the worst end-world film ever made. The concept alone is one bizarre in history of film, a science fiction-themed tribute to Last Year and Bad, the 1960s that defined the French New Wave. While it is the on again, off again, odd darling of the midnight movie and science fiction convention crowds, Marienbad has otherwise generated almost universal disdain among casual moviegoers, as well as serious cinemaphiles, including those of us here at Blast. The on-beam world is rife with vitriolic reviews and caustic academic essays. Many of the comments are so vitriolic and caustic they cannot be repeated in a public broadcast. However, we have managed to sanitize a few for your enjoyment. The incoherent ramblings of an insane mind, I'm not sure there is a classification for this one. Long stretches of surrealism, where we are this character's head and not grounded in recognizable reality. What was that? Was this person using drugs or what? I decided to be generous and give you a 1 rather than a 0. I am so completely confused. I have no idea what's going on, what's real, and what the narrator is imagining. It's terrible. This movie even offended the protagonist, who recently broke down the fourth wall to post his own objections on Beam World. Congratulations, Mark Leach. I read today that Next Year at Marienbad has been declared one of the worst films ever made, and still you smile, that clueless William smile. Why so pleased? If you really wanted to create a noteworthy science fiction fantasy film, then why no swords or elves? Why no Roman centurions? No, you thought you were too good. Only a hack would write genre, right? Instead of straight science fiction, you decided to employ the conventions of SF. It's all for effect, explain. And why did you have to me so perverse? After all, I am an autobiographical character. What do my perversions say about you, the filmmaker, who you are only an exaggerated version of me, say? Exaggerated comic effect. Fine. Here's what I say. I hate this. Being a fictional creation trapped in this abomination of an experimental, stream of conscious metafilm. How about crap? Now that next year at Marienbad has been unleashed on the world, surely the apocalypse is not far behind. Indeed, the New York Agenda published a story about an apocalyptic religion called Marienbadism. Inspired by Scene's movie, a group of dedicated Marienbadists are planning to show the film in a special, yet-to-be-built drive-in theater in Tibet, an action Mark Leach has stated will bring about the death of the world and the birth of the new religion. And of course, there are still the pending murder charges. Though, in all fairness, it is hard to see how one person can be blamed for the destruction of an entire town. But we digress. How did such a film ever come to be made at all? How did such a film maker ever come to be born? Yes, what is going on conscious mind of this offender of humanity, this embracer of iniquity, this self-diagnosed sufferer of postmodern prophet disorder, this prototype of the two-body man, Steve Harrison, business editor of the Tarrant County Register and former boss, is here to shed some light on this strange and abhorrent. Welcome, Steve. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on Blast. Mark has called Next Year at Marienbad his incredible revelation. Did he often incorporate so-called prophetic visionary content into work as real estate editor? Mark was not real estate editor at the Register. Oh, but I thought he may have put it on his resume, but that doesn't make it true. Mark was a reporter, mostly daily assignment on local business. A revealing exaggeration, yet another example of the filmmaker's all-encompassing figure of ostentation in imagination, if not conduct, and general air of narcissism, a quality we often see in corporate CEOs, as well as the criminal insane. And in fact, this particular insane criminal, also the CEO of his own movie, yes, we'll call him chairman of the board, he does show an overarching theme of hoped-for recognition as a superior life form, or God. Unfortunately, Mark feels he is entitled to superiority without corresponding superior achievement. Good. At the risk of overusing a trite example, I must say that at times work reminds of the schlock director from Texas, Ward E. Timber. Exactly. Next Year at Marienbad comes off like a hymn to paraphrase the DVD dust jacket comments of the distributor. Wade Williams, a sincerely yet utter flawed tribute from Ward to himself and else who has ever attempted to construct something clever, significant, and yet blotch it wretchedly at every turn. You can almost see the string cardboard tombstone. Steve, did you see signs of this misplaced grandiosity and self-deification work the Register? No, I wouldn't say that. Mark was quiet and nose to the grindstone kind of reporter. I'd characterize him as a journeyman. To be sure, he was a reliable worker. He met the expectations on his assignments, which were varied. I told him he was our utility fielder, but, yes, a jack of trades, a master of none. I'm afraid he had much style as a journalist or a movie movie director, and that points to one of the central problems of next year at Marienbad. Mark has a nice touch at the micro level, lots of stunning metaphorical imagery, especially dealing with the central theme, the eruption of the inner escape into waking reality. The inexplicable scent of rose mystic icons, weep blood, statues, the saints of their own accord. This film is truly a story of the unconscious in the waking world, but Mark just doesn't pull it all together into a single cohesive narrative. What you just said about the micro level, this is absolutely on target. Marienbad intermittent victorious. But as a whole, well, even Mark's biggest fans must admit that his latent talent shines brightest at the level of scene. Let's roll the clip. Here's one way the world ends. I am standing on the backyard patio of my boyhood home, looking up at the eastern heaven. It is an incredible sight. A white clock dial bleeding through the thin cobalt sky. The psychic contrail is suspended a thin stratosphere, an icy cirrus cloud of time. Somehow I understand the government knows all about it, but has been keeping it a secret. Now that the clock in the air has been decloaked, there is its existence. Is it a spaceship, perhaps? Or it could be something far more significant, a sign from... In fact, this may be the divine pocket, his timepiece, but time strange to be here, so out of time. My parents sold this house here. Pretty. Agreed. We should be fair. Next year at Marienbad, no way a total embarrassment. Mark is comfortable behind the camera if he doesn't report with it. And the camera clearly loves him. Scenes like this next year at Marienbad certainly remind one of great apocalyptic film hydrocarbon epics like The Revolution of Zion, The Clock Scan Spears, or anything from a band series. But unlike those driving classics, Mark simply fails to generate its own personality. It never fully succeeds in terms of the genre. So often during Marienbad, I reflected upon how better everything must function inside Mark's head. Honestly, it was the same way with Mark's long or in-depth news. Do tell, he struggled to make the jump from brain to computer keyboard. He could rarely establish the proper tension. Fascinating. How do you mean? It's like I tell you, my young reporters, good writing is like a turnbuckle. Not too tight, not too loose. A turnbuckle. The little metal adjuster they use to put on wooden screen door. Set it too loose and the door would drag. Too tight and the door would warp. Your anecdote tires a languid bloodbath waltz of insipid storytelling, a dog humping the silky, poorly sculpted fluff yawn. Any Mark Leach examples come to mind? I remember one time Mark brought us a story about a rash of new hotels slated to break ground in Terran country. At the time, we were undeserved the lodging industry, so it was big news, but it wasn't big enough for Mark. No, he said his research had revealed that there were so many projects that if they were all constructed, the hotel might crash. So he claimed that's a story he won't write. Mark was actually going to have overbuilt before anybody broke ground. So sad. Explain it. Mark, you're too clever by half. But in fact, he was right, yes? They did That's hardly the point. You could say it's the same way with next year at Mad. Mark's cleverness is quite engaging, but not engaging enough to sustain narrative tension to more 50-foot drive it. Yes, he almost fails to suck. Welcome to my island. Pull up a deck chair, help yourself to the tanning, but watch out for the brain crabs, they bite. May I offer you a festive beverage, perhaps with a paper umbrella? No, understand. You are unsure, filled with doubt. You have purchased your ticket, acquired soft drink, and bucket of popcorn and taking your seat, yet still you a rapture movie without a rapture? Is this really, or perhaps the worries rather too much, that is to say too much Mark, I'm told, me goes quite away. I hope you're not here to console me. Such an action is clearly not documented in the script. I am happy, snug, antebellum, bachelor pad. The slave bricks are big crumble, but the walls are still strong, thick. Imagine it. 3 solid made, cool in the summer, in the winter, dry too. The old stale slate roof is like a sheet of iron. Nothing gets through. The accommodations are quite luxurious. A leather sofa, a Sears Pedic king mattress, a fully stocked wine cellar. I even have my old 1970 Cutlass convertible. You remember it, don't you? My island's nothing like a prison. Did you know I dreamed of this place? And I'm talking about a genuine, naturally occurring, incredible revelation. Again, you looked out for trade by the old smile. I know what you're thinking. We studied this building in Mrs. Wilson's 7th grade Texas history, the section on civil. What can I say? I have Texan. I state history. I have fish jar with pride out of the bricks, and I'm from... the beach. But here, such concrete evidence inadmissible. This place does not belong to the waking. This place, over which I had once again, and sand so profound, so deep that one perceives step. This mournful isle, another encrusted with artificial time. This magnificent isle, where beaches, without end beaches. The sand been so profound, so deep. The beaches are deserted now of the still, possibly dead people of exile. One perceives step in this perjury. You know, I am here and raised in this place. No conversation flows void, apparently at any rate, and to mean any. A phrase hangs there, as though frozen, though doubts taken. Again, no matter, the same conversation, always repeated by the same prosaic. No, the place to the waking, we now put too deep and let down for a cat. I am part of a travel Gulf Coast, enjoying a boat tour. The man at the helm, our captain and guide, takes us last ride. We pass little islands, some just big enough to stand on, all the while heading toward this link chain bath. This main island is dominated by no brick structure. It has no window. An archetype element is set into the brickwork. Perhaps it has flat. I cannot say for sure. It will occur to me that the structure reminds me of Sumter, the place where Confederate troops fired the first shot of the Civil War. As we near the island, the captain brings around to the side. On the beach, I notice giant structures. They lie on top of the sand, spread out like thick cable. Their surfaces resemble the rough, fibrous husk of a coconut. As we pass the island, I see that we are now heading back toward the beach, as if we have been in harbor rather than the open sea. I ask our guide about the purpose of the building. It was a reply, but he doesn't sound certain, and I am convinced he is correct. Why the building separated? I ask. Without waiting for an answer, I immediately volunteer my theory. Maybe the building was once in back on me, but the shoreline changed, cutting it off the world. The guide does not. Then our boat is suddenly in a car. And our guide is driving a road that parallels. Next, we will original count Corpus Christi says. Corpus Christi, the body of Christ. Excited as we will still town, the one where the local and not theological illusion maintain the pilgrim. The road, shoreline part, the historic set, no high-rise hotel, floating food restaurant. This Corpus Christi appears to be a typical Texas town. Blockings crowded street. You should go check it out before you very picturesque. We approach on a 2-lane highway, the edge of town, portionally half the land consists of corrugated building. The cross is marked by a sort of entry made out of the sheet metal, obviously creation intended to play off the old building. On the sign there is a multi-word, but I do not recall it. Perhaps something a word or marketplace. I realize that some developer has created his market concept in hopes to revitalize a not too clever rip-off of a similar redevelopment concept at Stranger's Rest. The sign, colorful yet muted, a perfect match for the weather-oxidized metal. A block later, we reach the retailer. As we pass, I glance back shoulder. There is some revitalization here too. The body of Christ now has one is an ancient parlor, a restaurant with a fun of a cartoon pig, perhaps some Carolina-style barbecue. The mini balls sit on a high, narrow shelf alongside stacks of gray steel film canisters and random entries from the sanctioned psychic manifest, nightmare metaphors of violent purple twilight and unfulfilled judgments and dreams. Welcome to my broken world. Here I wander through an obscene territory of winged demons, aerial creatures bearing branded vials of amputated ghost parts, decaying metallic reek of bankrupt snake skins, corroded iron shadows of cicada exoskeletons, troubled mirror, reproducing endless spectral relations, hopeless erotic cries echoing across vast plains of repressed desire. Here in the thin gray light I pour over the sacred text of communal disaster. Breathe in the double helix of lilac smoke suspended in a porcelain cobalt heaven. View the golden coronas of uneven and prepared genetic amplifiers. Walk uselessly through the golden corona, through the neurotic oily winds. Listen to the rasping wings of hysterical tidal birds. Feel the sluggish tropic flames burning through anxious gaunt murk. Yes, we're on the pathway now. A shower of glittering emerald flakes descending unhurried through a tarnished sea of fluid screams. Painfully abrupt stench of damp waste. Giant mounds, smoldering linen, mummy casing, a broken stone indicator of the final extinguished horse thief. Stranger's Rest, gone but not forgotten. A murder by pittance rage. An image of the horned creature automobile with a factory installed means of listening to the deity. And that's just the opening credit. For the soundtrack, I have commissioned an orchestra of reluctantly castrated violin to perform my composition's disconsolate tunes of societal alien bewilderment, of old coin, fermented blood, of desiccated cats, threadbare Egyptians, of heretical transformations occurring behind jagged DNA dream codes and splotched sallow screens of rancid ectoplasm surging penetration of Forgive me, I am an odious being. This sort of thing happens off these days, getting carried away in the beauty of chaos and lurid intervals of sadistic horror. The FX apparatus disgorges an enormous radiant fog of visual and nonsense. I digress into the shattered violet neon dusk of my own atrophied human citizenship, and the dazzling garbage heap of our tragic dead age. When I am like this, unpleasant things happen. The walls start bleeding, Nazi paratroopers land outside the window, tiny white eggs on the back of my hand hatch into hungry wolf spiders, which proceed to strip flesh from my bone. Director's note: will this quantity of tainted celluloid on the cutting room floor. My favorite prop in the jar of pickled sea monsters. I caught them just a few yards from here in the roiling surf, my inner sea. Warning: beware of the riptide. Do not swim without a prophet on duty. You could be dragged into the land of the dead. How can it be otherwise? Here in my Patmosian exile, I have learned to give credit to the inner world, the world of fire, the world behind masonries of the everyday. Heraclitus said it is to Hades that they raid and celebrate their feasts. Hades, the world of the dead, the conclusion of practical man and the ambition of spiritual man. Still, I miss the practical, the everyday. I miss ice cream and barbecue, miss eating out. I miss so many things. The result is some rather severe restrictions of natural libido flow. As one of my court-ordered dental psychiatrists put it, so perhaps this place really is a prison. And then, of course, I miss my face. Yes, I noticed you've been staring at it. I don't mind, it's understandable. The right half of my face now resembles a cross between a slab of brown, bloodless beef and a piece of weathered lumber. Nothing human left. Aliens. People assume it happened in the fire, but it's not a scar. It is the raw, undifferentiated tissue of evolution. This is the disintegration of culture into chaos. This is the alien within. It's even in the script. Sure, we took a few liberties, skirted the old genetic taboo, aren't we all kin? But it was all for science, cutting-edge work, I tell you. A flippered anxiety disordered here, a web-footed phobia there. And just last week, a breakthrough in the treatment of mystical psychosis. Cicada wing, tiny little protrusions by tendon to the clavicle. Talk about a transformation. Eventually we'll get one we don't have to euthanize. So sad. They look quite peaceful up there on the shelf, lined up in their labeled pickle jars, like sleeping baby dragons. Pretty. But for now, there is only the prototype of new man, and quite man at that. At one point, the stranger tells me we will even grow 2 extra DNA delivery organs, have to employ a pairing to prune away the smallest ones. He claims we will experience no pain, makes the main trunk grow thicker and taller, says, just like a crepe myrtle. Don't know if that's the final cut. An NC-17 rating, a definite financial risk. Have I offended you? It's just that for the past I've been having sepia-toned flashback adolescent desire. I think back to English lit, to Albert Camus. Oh, sun, which in the island, the path of trade winds, whose memory drives into despair. You are still the same as I thought I left you only yesterday. What has become of this time? You're still the same, but you hardly seem to be to remember. How can that be? After all, our high school was only last year. Have I changed so much then? Or are you pretending not to recognize? A year already? Perhaps more. I remember you, of course, as the Iraq saw you step onto the beach. Time seemed to reverse. The clock in the air rolled back to before the solution, before the world catastrophe. We had retreated across the year, returned to high school, sprawled across the cool, in the back cutlet, checking out my crepe myrtle. You, at least, are still the same. You have still the same dream last year in Bad Eye, the same smile, the same sudden, the same brusque arm, the same way of resting your hand on your shoulder, and you still use the same perfume. But perhaps that sort of Rob Grier character is no longer option. We're all up now. You say, responsible. This is the bittersweet denouement, complete with the swelling metallic stain, the castrated. The Hollywood critics roll their eyes at this over-the-top romance, but I find the real people still like that thing. We all want the boy to get the girl. As for your offer of help in my hour of that, I'm sorry, but it is clearly documented in my script. You are to make the offer, and I am experiencing a grateful sensation of humor. Here's my line. I'm touched. I can't think of lawyer or any person really I'd rather have to defend me, the Hague, and then I shall enthusiastically penetrate your membranes with my DNA. Ha ha, little joke. Still, we made a script doctor for this part. It is critical to the plot that I already stand condemned. The trial or theater. Your object to a script response, a premeditated life, I understand. However, I didn't make it up. This is the contemporary quandary that renders experience feasible for all. I distinctly remember encountering this idea in a book somewhere, possibly Paul F. The life you save be your own. To paraphrase, experience is forever recycled, standardized, a story allegoric scripted film for mass consumption. We are intensely self-conscious being fated to an increasingly intensified rift from our own selves, and the occasional genuine experience ruined by this eternal personal. The contemporary contemporary being is destined to a simulation existence. The personality cannot be itself. The contemporary being cannot be acquainted with the earth or with the deity. That is why the stranger he wants to make obvious he lived. What's that? Ah yes, you wish to know about the Armageddon Drive Theater. I prefer to save the climax for last, but I certainly understand many people like to know up front how a movie will end. The important thing to realize about events at the drive-in theater in real life, it was called the Highway 114 drive-in, is that they did not come from my nocturnal vision. Rather, the stranger based this part of the script on an anonymous posting found on an exogrid message board dedicated to on-beam creations about the conclusion of time. The Christian congregations of my community had come together to take us all to a drive-in movie theater. When we got there, they split us up into two groups, the one who was going with God and the one who was staying on earth. And of course I was in the group that was staying. I saw people there who I have known for a long time, and some were worried and some were not. I was praying the whole time for forgiveness. I could not see why I was going. I was mad that they had divided us into groups as if they knew who God was taking. When they had brought us to this place, it was night, and I prayed until morning. At sunrise, I went inside the snack bar where they had gathered everyone who was going, and I saw empty candy wrappers and popcorn buckets and the pillows, sleeping bags on the floor where some had been sleeping. But there were no bodies, only imprints on the pillows where they had been laying their head. I was so angry because I did not understand. Some people who had been left behind were saying now how we were going to have to face the fact we would not be spending the rest of eternity with God, but burning in hell. I knew that I did not want to suffer an everlasting torment, and I unplugged. I was out of breath, and I was trembling slightly. I have never had a beam experience so real, and this was by far the worst of my recent creation about the conclusion of time. It has scared me so bad, and I wish that everyone who is not saved or unsure about their faith would have this experience. So I wonder why I am having I am unsure if I want them again or not. Despite the unfortunate anxiety experienced by the surfer, this scene is incredibly. The stranger decides that all extras will be church folk, but there is a catch. Only the Methodists are going. Can you believe it? Methodists don't even believe in the rapture. Meanwhile, the others, Christians, strange rest, do not like playing the role of the abandoned. Those who are staying must spend the rest of eternity burning in hell. The casting again, this casting type is particularly offensive to the local chapter of the Keepers of the Deity, the former congregation of the Strangers Rest Baptist Church, who jettisoned the old, dead, discredited name and now worship in the combination gas station exogrid church out on the interstate. When they complain of this cinematic heresy, the assistant director serves up the introductory disclaimer. It is the stated position of the Keepers of the Deity that his safeguards would prevent the occurrence of such blasphemous events as are depicted in this film. Furthermore, it should be noted that none of the characters portrayed in this film are meant to represent any waking world congregations, living or dead. The Keepers of the Deity still grumble, but I see from the look in their eyes that they are appeased. Their dogma has been validated in the ideal for our times film. This is an objectionable era. Dark nations and rulers are universally triumphant. Evil thrives in elevated locations. Nevertheless, there is a more obvious and nearby danger, for I argue that the end of the world is already here. The end is not a destruction of stone and wood or flesh and blood. Rather, this is the end of the terminal legend, the legend, a conquering champion of the rationalist creature of merit. I know all about it because I dreamt it, because I dream it still. Here is the one-sentence film treatment. Christ-haunted journalist turns to 1950s B-movie sci-fi to report the biggest story of his life, how he prophesied the end of the world. Corpus Christi was once home to about a half dozen drive-in theaters. The Gulf, the Surf, the Twin Palm, they're all gone now, lost to yesterday's sun and sand and salty breeze, edited away with the rest of the dead hydrocarbon age. I fear the same thing will happen to my movie. Even with proper disclaimers, the distributor may find my theology unacceptable. He may insist upon the deletion of heretical scenes, my vision under siege. We need a director's cut, an undiluted version of me, the protagonist of my own true story. The movie will be, by its very nature, numinous. It will conclude with me consuming myself, a hand sandwich, and a glass of fermented corpuscles, multimedia Eucharist. That's good, Messiah. You are offended? Sorry, but the best movie directors have all the best doubter. If you accept the role of the movie-making muse, you can start by manipulating the footage in the can labeled Notes for a B Movie about the end of the world. You like? The name is a variation on the subtitle of one of my all-time favorite movies, Let Me Love You, Confessions of a Bad God on the Planet Near the Conclusion of Time. This is key footage for next year at Marienbad, the movie that will bring about the end of the world and the beginning of the new religion. A group of dedicated Marienbadists have already begun preparations for the world premiere, which will be conducted at a specially constructed drive-in movie theater located somewhere in the Himalayas. Cylindrical clock chimes hanging from clouds will convene the moviegoers from around the planet. I will be stationed behind the camera, encircled by a multitude of grips and gaffers, vocalists and primal goddesses. Uniformed orators narrating manuscripts and marches and spectacles will fashion their share of the exploits along with the primal goddesses, whose dance routines will incorporate eye signal and stroking of the fingertips in combination with aromas of enjoyable fragrances as well as pungent smoldering flame. Columns of anger will dot the landscape and fire will explode in streams of luminosity and expanses of conflagration. This will continue for 7 days. When the movie is finally over and final credits roll, the world will at last come to an end, and then there will be a new deity in the heaven. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let Me Love You is a great epic film. It is actually based on an essay by Walker Percy, who also wrote a book called The Moviegoer, and a later one called Lancelot, which is about the making of a movie in an old Louisiana plantation somewhere near the land of the dead. And then there is the confessional device, that is, the me talking to you, to the you. See, I did not write you into the script merely for the purpose of penetrating your membrane. Rather, you are present to hear my confession. You are my priest. It is a technique Percy borrowed from Camus, The Fall. This is a tricky business, combining the last year at Marienbad with The Fall. I'm told that Alain Robbe-Grillet and Camus did not get along. Robbe-Grillet criticized Camus for having a dubious relationship with the world, one that relied on the power of metaphor. He said, all my work is precisely engaged in the attempt to bring its own structures to light. I like that, though it's not true for me. All my work is precisely engaged in the attempt to penetrate your membrane. Even though I have acknowledged the source of the stolen product, the recycled, premeditated experience, there might still be a copyright issue. You could work on that too. Remember, you have been cast in the role of the idealistic lawyer. So why a sequel to last year at Marienbad? Why did I select this enigmatic creation from the 60s as the template for my end-of-time film? Certainly, I could have chosen to pattern my work on any number of movies I admire. Let Us Love You is clearly an end-of-times movie worthy of imitation. The Revolution of Zion is another obvious choice. I could tell you I picked last year at Marienbad because of a scholarly paper by Dara O'Donoghue, who described it as post-apocalyptic, almost science fiction. I rather like that. Or I could tell you I picked it because I recognize and honor the genius of this film and its symmetrical perfection, but those would be untruths. The real story is I wish to compel you to play the role of A, clad in 1961 Chanel and feathers. At its heart, last year at Marienbad is a love story. Robbe-Grillet had it right. Boy gets girl. That is the conclusion I yearn for in my own art and life. The boy should always get the girl, even when the world comes to an end, or especially then. That is the role I have created for you, my darling muse, my love, your destiny. Listen, you can almost hear the clock chimes convening the moviegoers from around the planet. You're needed on the set. I must take my place behind the camera. In 7 days, the world will come to an end, and we must be ready. I must be ready. What's that? Yes, I still dream of my wife and children and our lives together in Stranger's Rest. I still dream of the night of the apocalypse, the rain of fire. I still see the Lancelot-style headline. Stranger's Rest burns, bodies of townsfolk charged beyond recognition. Reporter charged. The fire and the brimstone and the deaths of so many, but I can't think of so many about that right now. Besides, it all seems so distant, so unreal. Forget last year at Marienbad. I really wish I could do the abandoned ones thing. Big plot, familiar characters. It's a huge box office publishing success thanks to millions of keepers of the deity. After all, the Rapture is their sacred story. Did you know there's even a special version for kids? Here's a jacket blurb. Wicked times at Antichrist High. School's back in session, and wickedness is in the set of courses. Jewel, Ricky, Lynn, and Rusty, the young affliction corpse, a crack team of the deity's abandoned orphans, return from spring break to find their school has just been renamed Zuftaza Humanisto High, after the UN's new Secretary General, whom their scripture guru and Bible mentor Bruhaha Shides declares is the Antichrist. The polished, menacing Humanisto has already begun planning a one Earth government, religion, and coinage, so the young affliction corps must get innovative. They start The Subversive Tribe, a secret school television station that reports the true story of the rapture and Humanisto's wicked plans for Earth domination. The young affliction corps all pitch in to make their pirate TV station happen, despite pressure from Humanisto's faculty and even a strange, possibly demonic collapse of the station's secret broadcasting antenna. Ricky is arrested as public enemy number 1, wanted for her part in producing The Subversive Tribe. Refusing to turn in her pals, Ricky gets inserted into the wicked place, the UN's infamous Norm Part internment camp in Arizona, but she makes it out because she's been adopted by a foster family, none other than the Bible mentor himself, Bruhaha Shides, and the young affliction corps, still committing to spreading the truth about the rapture and the rise of Humanisto as the Antichrist, adds its newer member, Chatty, as Jewish televangelist. Wicked Times at Antichrist High is the 5th installment of The Abandonment Kids, the child's version of Gilles de Gier and Ike Havoc's rapture hit, The Abandoned Ones. A well-done tale, and yet why does their sacred story seem so insubstantial? All the deaths and losses, and the empty clothes, and the unpiloted jetliners, and the United Nations one world government, and empty candy wrappers, and popcorn buckets, and humbled, penitent souls nevertheless tossed into the lagoon of flames. Why does it seem so unreal next to a few teenage libidinal moments on the vinyl back seat of a 1970 Cutlass convertible? That's right, the movie can be about you too. I recognize the possibilities already in this concept. You have your own death and loss to deal with, your own nightmares. We could write a touching backstory, ideally the death of someone close. There could be a kindly old man and a spunky dog too. No? Well then, perhaps it is not a literal death, but a loss just the same. We can use a blue screen in post-production to superimpose an FX-created image of the pain into your eyes. I envision sadness, a world weariness, something that I could recognize in myself but never knew in you. Here's my line. It didn't occur to me that you might have your own pain to deal with, your own demons to battle, your own apocalypse, so that's it. We're both prisoners. Pretty, huh? And now you smile. I never could get the knack of you. So, how about a little spin around the island in the old Cutlass convertible? We could rough out the film treatment while screen testing the natural libidinal flow on the black vinyl, a sort of stand-in for the Hollywood casting couch. Still, you are smiling but speechless. Ah, and now I see why. Here comes the boat. You must leave. Will you come again tomorrow?